Hey everyone, so this is an impromptu episode of Study Acupuncture with me because Dr. Scott reached out to me on Instagram and he showed me this social media post on Florida trying to eliminate acupuncturist professional titles that include physician and doctor. And this would go into effect July 1st, 2023, if these two bills of SB 230 and HB 583 were allowed to go through. So this social media post asks us to take action now by reaching out to our legislators. So I wanted to just research these two bills and sort of expand on what these two bills present with so that you can make an informed decision as well. So there's these two bills, SB 230 and HB 583, and they center around healthcare practitioner titles and designations. So let's talk about each of these bills. Because when it comes to bills, when it comes to legislation, as clinicians, we have to ask ourselves one thing when we read the bill. We have to ask ourselves, does this change the way I can treat my patients? Because patient care should be above everything, right? So if someone is trying to limit our scope of practice, we then would really need to stand up and advocate for our patients, because that's what we as healthcare practitioners want to do. We want to treat our patients, we want to treat as many patients as we can, and we want to do it in ways that will benefit them. So does this bill expand the way I can treat my patients? Meaning, does it increase my scope of practice, or does it limit me? Does it decrease my scope of practice? Because again, patient care is above everything else. So these two bills, it's centered around healthcare practitioner titles and designations. Now, it specifically seems to center around two chapters of the Florida statutes, which are two professions, the medical doctors and the doctors of osteopathic medicine. So that's chapter 458 and chapter 459 of the Florida statutes. And for reference, we are chapter 457. And the bill does say its purpose centers around practicing medicine and practicing osteopathic medicine. Now, this bill would require healthcare practitioners to use certain titles when they're introducing themselves to their patients or in their advertisements. And this goes for all healthcare practitioners that are defined from Chapter 457 to 491. So these are all the different disciplines that are in Florida. That ranges from acupuncturists to pharmacists, midwives, speech therapists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, the whole gamut. Now, the bill further defines what people can call themselves. So it gives an entire list of all the different titles that are allowed in connection with the practice of medicine or osteopathic medicine. So you have things like Doctor of Medicine, MD, Doctor of Osteopathy, Family Physician, Medical Doctor, Surgeon, Neurosurgeon, all these different titles. Then on line 118 of this bill, it says, notwithstanding subsection 2, which is all the titles that I was just reading to you, a licensed practitioner may use the name or title of his or her profession, which is authorized under his or her Practice Act, and any corresponding designations or initials so authorized to describe himself or herself and his or her practice. So that's when we should go into our chapter 457 of the Florida statutes, which each chapter with their statutes will define what it means to be XYZ. So in ours, it says acupuncturist. It means that any person who's licensed, as provided in this chapter, to practice acupuncture as a healthcare provider. So now it doesn't really further define acupuncture physician or doctor of Oriental medicine here. Now we have to go all the way to the prohibited act section of our chapter, which does give us some further titles. So it says here that prohibited acts. A person may not practice acupuncture unless they're licensed under our own statutes, and they can't use in connection with his or her name or place of business any title or description of services which incorporates the word acupuncture, acupuncturist, certified acupuncturist, licensed acupuncturist, Oriental medical practitioner, the letters LAC, RAC, AP, which is the acupuncture physician, or DOM, which is the doctor of Oriental medicine. So here we do have those designations there for acupuncture physician, AP, and DOM. So again, here from 118 to 122, it does say that a licensed practitioner may use the name or title of his or her profession, which is authorized under his or her Practice Act, and any corresponding designations or initials so authorized to describe himself or herself and his or her practice. Now, although it's not in the definitions part of our Practice Act, it just says acupuncturist in the definitions of our Practice Act. It's only in the prohibited act section of our Practice Act, which is, it says AP and DOM. Now, back to this bill, after this line 118, it does further specify 3 disciplines. In the other bill, it specifies even more, but it seems to specify specifically chiropractors, podiatrists, and dentists. So basically for chiropractors, it says that they can use the word chiropractic physician, doctor of chiropractic medicine, and chiropractic radiologist, and any other titles, abbreviations, or designations authorized under his or her Practice Act reflecting those specialty areas. Podiatrist, it says it can use podiatric physician or podiatric surgeon, and dentists can use doctor of medicine in dentistry, and other words like surgeon. Now, it does not include here acupuncturists, who can use the title of acupuncture physician or doctor of Oriental medicine. Now, this is where that movement is coming from. So here's where I would just give my recommendation, and my recommendation would be to reach out professionally to our legislators about these 2 bills, SB 230 and HB 583, and ask professionally that the following titles also be included for acupuncture physician and doctor of Oriental medicine. Now, I also recommend, though, at the same time, that we should work with our Florida legislatures to further define our own statute of 457.102, which is the definitions one, which we've only included acupuncturist. And it should further define these terms, just like the medical doctors do with their Florida statutes with 458 and 459. Because if we look at the Florida statute for the osteopathic physicians, it does say in their definitions, osteopathic physician, doctor of osteopathy. It specifies it there. Whereas for us, we only specify for ourselves as acupuncturists. So it really should spell out acupuncture physician, doctor of Oriental medicine, or whatever other titles that we feel like we should be called. All right, now let's talk about HB 583 so we can further dig into these 2 bills so we can get a clear picture so that we can help educate our community and further advocate for our profession. So the second bill is HB 583, which basically says the same thing as HB 230, but it does give further specifics. And again, these 2 bills, it seems like the purpose is really just to clear up Chapter 458, which are medical doctors, and Chapter 459, which are osteopaths or DOs, and the word physician and the word doctor. And again, we are Chapter 457 in Florida. So HB 583, here's a screenshot from lines 125 to 137. It says here, all other healthcare practitioners may only use the titles and abbreviations authorized by their respective practice acts and this paragraph. So again, we should professionally reach out to our legislators in Florida and work on further defining our own definitions in our Practice Act of 457.102. But it does continue here to say, any non-physician healthcare practitioner who has obtained a doctoral degree under the profession governed by the applicable practice may use the letter D in front of the abbreviations authorized by the healthcare practitioner's respective act. So I imagine that would just mean the same thing that we're doing now, because we're using DAOM, we're using DOM, Doctor of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine, Doctor of Oriental Medicine. And then the bill goes on to further say, however, a non-physician healthcare practitioner may not use the title doctor in any form of advertisement, telehealth interaction, text message, or verbal communication without, and here's the really important part, without clearly identifying himself or herself as doctor of a specific profession, citing the applicable chapter under which the healthcare practitioner is licensed, which I imagine would just mean that we have to say, hi, I'm Doctor of Oriental Medicine, Samantha Johnson. So it doesn't necessarily ban us from anything. It just requires that all practitioners who have a doctoral degree specify that they are a doctor of XYZ, just to limit any confusion between medical doctors and doctors of osteopathic medicine. All right, so I hope that clears things up for you and you got all the key takeaways from those 2 bills. So that way we can just educate our other acupuncturists about the bill, and we can reach out to our legislators so that they can amend the bill, because we want them to include us in that subsection with acupuncture physician and doctor of Oriental medicine. But in tandem, we also want to advocate to further define our definition section in Chapter 457.102 so that we can include a further definition than just acupuncturist. Now, about these two bills and if it affects the way we treat our patients, it doesn't seem to change the way we treat our patients. It doesn't seem it limits our scope of practice, but it also doesn't expand our scope of practice. So I would still definitely make that professional effort to reach out to your legislators about adding us in that subsection for HB 583, because they also included chiros and dentists, so we should also be there as well. And I would also make a professional effort to reach out to your legislator to further define that definition statute. So we should include acupuncturist, acupuncture physician, doctor of Oriental medicine, because I also feel like including these titles in our chapter statutes would increase our position with insurances as well. Since these two bills specifically say a licensed practitioner may use the name or title of his or her profession, which is authorized under his or her practice act, and any corresponding designations or initials so authorized to describe himself or herself and his or her own practice. So that has to be in our practice act. All right, so this was an impromptu episode, but I hope it helped you understand what's going on with that legislature in Florida, and it moves you to advocate for us and for the advancement of our profession of acupuncture. So until next time, God bless and happy studying.